Now, the narrator is baffled. He's confused. He does not know what to do. He does not know where to go. He has landed at the address, which is a total ruin. Nobody lives there. So he asks himself, had Julie played a joke on me? He's talking to himself here, and he's asking himself that has he been pranked by Julie? And he says, or had I found the wrong house? I mean, the possibilities are endless. He is asking himself if he has landed up at the wrong address. Maybe he had the address wrong, or maybe he was not at the right house. So the possibilities can be many. He is unable to comprehend the situation. I walked around the hill to the mission house where the Taylors lived and asked old Mrs. Taylor if she knew a girl called Julie. Now, if you're unable to find some address, what would you do? The first step is that we look around and we ask the people in the neighborhood about that particular address. That's what the narrator does. He looks around and he finds himself at Taylor's house, and Mrs. Taylor comes outside and he asks if she knew a girl named Julie. No, I don't think so, she said. Where does she live? So Mrs. Taylor gives the answer in the negative. She didn't know who Julie was. She asked the narrator, where does she live? And the narrator replies, at Wolfsburn, I was told, but the house is just a ruin. Now the narrator tells her the address of Julie, and it's Wolfsburn, and he adds, I was told, because he is not sure if that is the correct address. Why? Because the house is a total ruin. It's broken up into fragments and it's not worth living. So he is not able to understand as to what is going on. Nobody has lived at Wolfsburn for over 40 years. Mrs. Taylor tells the narrator that it's been 40 years that nobody has lived at Wolfsburn. The Mackinnons lived there. So the people who lived in that house 40 years ago were the Mackinnons, one of the old families who settled here. Mackinnons were one of the old families who lived in that neighborhood and at Wolfsburn. But when their girl died, she stopped and gave me a curious look. She was adding something more to the information that when their girl, Mackinnon's girl, died, and then she stopped, and there was this sudden strange look on her face, and that look could be recognized by the narrator. I think her name was Julie. Anyway, when she died, they sold the house and went away. No one ever lived in it again, and it fell into decay. So, was it a coincidence that the girl who died 40 years ago, she was Julie, and the girl whom the narrator met the other night, she was also Julie? What kind of a coincidence it was? Now it was even more baffling. And she goes on to say, they sold the house and went away. After their girl, Julie, died, nobody lived in that house anymore. They sold the house and they left that place. No one ever lived in it again, and it fell into decay. But it couldn't be the same Julie you are looking for. Mrs. Taylor is also confused, and she says that no, you are not talking about the Julie who died 40 years ago. It cannot be so. It's impossible. She died of consumption. There wasn't much you could do about it in those days. Her grave is in the cemetery just down the road. So, Julie had died because of consumption. It's a lung disease, and in those days there wasn't a medication or a treatment that could save Julie. And it's been 40 years that she's been lying in her grave in the cemetery which is down the road. Cemetery is a graveyard where the dead bodies are buried. So Julie was in her grave. It's been 40 years. How can the narrator meet a girl who's no longer alive? That's quite a mystery, and that's what we have to find out.